I wanted to be a TV anchor, ironically enough. So I think that was such a big part of why I went into, when I moved to LA, I wanted to be a TV host. Because to be quite candid, the reason why news wasn't so appealing to me anymore is because of it was constantly like a death or a fire or a shooting, which is basically, well, shootings, now we see way too often. But that's why when I came to LA, it was like entertain, like it was nice to be able to find your own niche and talk about it. So
Nice.
TV anchor.
Hey, everyone, Ella here. And before I dive in and introduce today's phenomenal guest, I just want to mention a few things. First of all, it's 8 in the morning. I've been up since 4:44. That's generally my wake up call on the weekdays. So I've been at it for a while, but I don't know about you, but once I'm up and have some mushroom coffee, I sit out on my balcony, do some meditation, and bring my computer out onto the balcony, which overlooks Biscayne Bay in Miami, and work and watch the sunrise is generally my routine, part of my routine at least. And anyway, my PJs, which I still have on, it's just my most focused time right there in the morning. And I'm saying this because all of our episodes are up now on YouTube. So if you ever want to watch, go for it. It's on the Sexy Fit Vegan channel. Anyway, I don't usually include the intros in the YouTube videos, but I decided that I'm going to give it a shot and include the intro because I want to make the intro more fun and personable and share some personal things on it. So I will share that I'm wearing my beloved pajamas, which is like this little jumper. And luckily you can't see it on the video, but I've worn this thing for so long and it literally feels like I'm naked, and I love being naked. So it's so paper thin and it has holes all over it. And yet I'm still sometimes take my dog out to the grass outside in it, which is probably on the verge of being obscene. So I'm committed to maybe not doing that before too long. It's one thing. But anyway, yes, I'm recording this intro using video, and I'm going to include it in the YouTube video. So if you have any feedback on that, please let me know. Also want to mention, if you didn't see, I'm preparing in 2 days to leave for Omaha. I'm giving a talk at the Healthy for a Lifetime conference. I think there's well over 1,200 people that will be in the audience. It's going to be a 50-minute talk up on stage. So I'm pretty excited, a little nervous. And guess who's meeting me there? Stephanie. So if you missed last week's episode, it was our first ever episode type that we're calling the Vegan View. And we just had a blast, and we hadn't recorded together since episode 100 of the Vegan Life Coach podcast. And so we're going to be releasing probably once a month an episode that's Stephanie and I kind of shooting the shit, which is not a great phrase. What's a better phrase? I was trying to think about this, but I didn't come up with one. But, sharing our stories, sharing what's happening, sharing our inner dialogues, and all the self-coaching tools that we teach in the Vegan Life Coach podcast. We're going to kind of share how we use them ourselves, and then cover things like cruelty-free and vegan, our favorite brands of makeup and cosmetics, and nutritional yeast. We had a whole thing on nutritional yeast. So I have already prepared a bag of my favorite brand of nutritional yeast, which is Nutrilicious. If you're interested, definitely check out the show notes for my link, because I buy it in bulk for myself. And Stephanie was like me in that she didn't like or doesn't think she likes nutritional yeast. And I didn't think I did either for many years until I found this brand. So I'm bringing her, I have it all packed to bring her a bag of Nutrilicious nutritional yeast. Because it has been such a game changer for me with my infamous white bean Nutrilicious kale salad that I have almost every morning. So that's that. If you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go back. It's different from all the other episodes we put out so far and super fun. And then the other thing I want to mention is the Thrive Against All Odds Summit, which is kicking off here, which you can go ahead and sign up for. It's completely free. Let me just tell you a little more about it. I had it all pulled up here. Yeah. So 9 days of talks and interviews, some of which are people that I've interviewed here on this show, like Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Joel Kahn, and Chef AJ is going to be on there. Like I said, it's completely free. It's going to be so super valuable. There are 36 experts talking about health and nutrition and the latest research. And of course, Chef AJ is always just a blast, right? So entertaining. So I definitely encourage you to get in now with the summit, and then you'll get all the info on when those 9 days are, and just, the more information, the better, right? And then if you go to the Vegan Life Coach podcast, we give you so many tools on that podcast for how you get to apply the information, right? Who was it? Maya Angelou, who said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Well, a lot of people I talk to, a lot of my clients that come to me say, you know what, Ella, I pretty much know better, but for some reason I can't do better. And so thanks to summits like these, you're going to know better. And then thanks to the tools that we teach, Stephanie and I, the tools I use with my coaching clients, which I am taking on just a few individual coaching clients right now, you're going to be able to do better. So putting all those pieces together is really exciting. So sign up for that, 100% free. And now let me tell you about today's guest, Shabnam Islam. I met her for the first time. We have some mutual friends. We are definitely in the same circles, but I hadn't met her until June when I went to the Vegan Women's Summit where she was speaking. And we connected, and you're going to see or hear in this interview just how well we vibe together. She is such a high vibe individual, and we just have fun. We have fun on this interview, valuable information, and just a deep connection and deep conversation along with fun. So a little bit more about her. Shabnam is a global health educator and first-generation Bangladeshi American vegan, a professor of kinesiology, clinical exercise physiologist, television host, and spokesperson for health-based projects across the country. Shabnam is currently completing her doctorate in educational leadership and policy, where she continues to develop sustainable and affordable public health programs for communities in need. And I do encourage you to stay tuned until the end to learn about this upcoming event called the V-Kind Experience, which looks extraordinary. It's a plant-based, fully immersive, epic event coming up November 11th and 12th in Los Angeles. And check out the show notes for a link to learn more and a code for 10% off your tickets. All right, enough intro. Let's get to this interview. Let's do it. Okay. Oh my God. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. And we were just chatting before we got started that, we've been in the same circles, in the same space for so long. For a number of years. And it took a friend who's not even in the vegan space. Right. And how did that happen?
I think I was going to the Vegan Women's Summit to speak, and you and Mike reached out to me. Thumbs up.
I didn't do that. I wasn't touching anything.
And that was the universe giving that
Thumbs up.
he was like my girl is going to be there.
Mm.
I need to connect you two via social media. And it's ironic because yeah, he's not even in the vegan space. He's a little
I've worked on him for a long time. It's not happening at the moment.
no. Well, he was vegan, plant-based. I hate to say he was vegan because when we
Right.
talk about going vegan, it really is truly about the connection of all the dots, right? You
Yes.
can't go back when you take that pill to exit the matrix. You truly can't. If it's not your ethics and ethos, then you are never vegan, right? And that's okay.
Mhm.
That's okay. You don't have to be, but I think for those of us that are, it's important to identify or have the distinction between being plant-based or exploring being plant-based versus truly being vegan.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I have a few questions that I want to throw at you at the beginning. Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. I think usually I have like 5. And for you, for some reason, I had to have 7.
Oh, shit.
They're mostly easy. Mostly
Okay.
easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I start off with the easiest one. Okay. Number 1. I mean, hopefully it's easy. I'm not sure 100%, but you only, this might be actually very difficult. You only get one for the rest of your life: tofu, tempeh, or edamame. And you're not allergic to soy, are you?
No, and it would
Okay.
totally be tofu.
Yeah. I mean, see,
Duh.
easy. Yeah.
Like
Duh.
so easy.
I
Duh.
mean, how many things can you do with tofu?
Too many.
Right.
Do like everything from ice cream to my entree to my appetizer to my dessert. 7-course meal. I can make it, and each day it could be different. That's the wonderful thing about tofu, is that it takes on the characteristics of whatever you play with it with, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when I went vegan in 1995, so I've been a vegetarian in 1987 and vegan in 1995. 1995.
This is why she looks 22, y'all. It's like my bestie Chef Babette, 72.
Yeah.
You can't, she looks like she's like 45. People often think that and I'm like, I can't wait for me to just stop aging at some point. Like you've done. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yes,
90.
43. I know you're in the 40 club now, right?
I am. I just turned 40 this July. Yes.
July what?
July 1st.
July 1st. Wow. 40 is a freaking fantastic.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal because now, I hope in your journey around the sun is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you're like, rich or poor, this is who I am. And I feel like maybe that's why at times I don't have the wealth that I need, that I have desired, because there are some accommodations I'm unwilling to make. And there are certain things that I will not sacrifice for capital gain. And I think that's something that we often combat in this lifetime. And I think at 40, I'm so proud of who I am today because of the no's I've said, no, the things I've said no to, more than the things that I said yes to or done.
Do you have an example of a no?
I don't know if I can share that here, but well, I think my biggest no is no more animal exploitation. Mm-hmm. My biggest one, my dollar is my vote. My dollar is my vote. I tell my students that every day when they feel helpless. You're not. Everything you purchase, everything you consume, everything you use, like all of it, that is your contribution to society. And I think when you make that choice every day, every moment, leading with someone else being at the forefront of your decisions, that's a selfless life. That is a life that I am proud to be a part of, because I feel like we are on the right side of history.
So powerful. And I think part of that also is really getting connected with your true values, not the values that you were told you have, the programmed values. And that doesn't always happen at 40. That sometimes never happens for people their whole lives.
And people, I'm sorry. Hello, table. And people will often argue, well, then veganism is programming. Well, I think every source of education or whatever influence it is programming. But you have to be able to further dissect the information you receive. It's like, I'm so wowed by flat earthers. I'm like, are you for real? Like what? the earth is flat, and you're so committed to this thought process when there's mountains of evidence that shows that this is not scientifically true. And so when we look at the evidence of what our contributions are, and the biggest contributor to climate degradation is what? Animal agriculture. Then why are we doing it? I see people up in arms about tearing away families at borders. You remember that? While you're eating cheese and crackers.
Right.
Like, how could you be okay for one species to be torn away from the children while you are the very reason why we tear mothers away from their children?
Yeah. And at this point, back in back in the day, there wasn't so much information, right? Readily available. There was no internet. I mean, was the internet? Yeah, I guess the internet was out, but it was like the dial up,
Yeah, I remember
AIM. Yeah. Yeah, but now it's out there, and but what do you think about, I mean, the social media, and we're still on question number one. But the bubbles that we create for ourselves, and we think that this is the information age, and it's out there, but it's being so curated, right? And so people are getting backed up. Whatever their belief is currently is just getting backed up by so much misinformation, right? It's scary.
That's terrifying. Yeah. But, that's when we have to teach people how to read information. Yeah. And that's the point of education. And when people devalue things like higher education, like college, the things about courses that teach you how to look at information through a critical lens, which we are totally advocating against now in Florida, the state of Florida, is problematic because it allows us to view, remember, we only see the winner's side of history. Right. So what we read in the textbooks was given from a lens created from like a white patriarchal male position that saw the benefit and the capitalization of the oppression of people of color. And when we limit people to the access of real information, we oppress a community. Like when we think about things like Fahrenheit 451, banning and burning books, we take away free thought, thereby freedom. And your freedom of thought is a very powerful thing, but it needs to be based in evidence. And so we have to be able to teach people, what are they reading? What are the sources of information from? Are they real? And that's the biggest issue I have now with social media, is because very often we can spread like an untruth, like Ryan Gosling is vegan. At the height of the Barbie movie, we see a post like this, and it's actually false information. And we have to wonder, like, what's the purpose of this? And why are we doing this? And do we correct our mistakes when we're called out about these things? So a lot of these are issues that we are seeing in all spaces, right? In veganism and non-veganism. And so less than a third of the country has a degree, and we're looking at less than 32% of the country. And that's an alarming rate of people that are really devout to their beliefs without having the knowledge of how to thoughtfully read and comprehend and validate information, right? Because there is some weight to higher education. And that's the thing that we want to see, is that we want to advocate for people to read more, write more, be part of thought. So limiting access to books and things are probably not a good solution, particularly when we are facing climate change, because we even see that now the state of Florida is allowing educators to talk about how climate change is a farcity. And that's terrifying, because these are future leaders of our country.
And speaking of degrees, somebody is getting their doctorate.
Yeah, I'm trying to finish it up. Yeah, this is taking forever. I'm finishing my educational doctorate in education leadership and policy, because I really want to transition to more like policy development of our food systems. I think the only way we instill change is through government intervention, because that is currently the state that we live in. We either live in a very highly capitalistic entrenched society or where government runs everything, right? And that's the duality that we live in. So there are plenty of ways to do this. I can create a company that starts to instill change, but to do so, you have to have a lot of capital. And we do know that particularly women entrepreneurs and of color have a lot more challenges when it comes to developing the funding and foundations you need to build these robust functional companies. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying everything comes with its challenges, right? But policy development is something that really fascinates me because I think we can really start to see a shift in our food systems. I mean, here's the cool thing is that the evidence shows that change happens from within the home. Usually, powerful instilling change comes not from the top down, not from the parents telling the child what to do, but if the child comes home and says, you know what, I'm not eating animals ever again. And now, really good parenting, and we see a majority of the time when a child does have this adverse reaction, because then the child just won't eat it. So then all of a sudden you have a kid that just only eats rice or beans or whatever is happening. So we see that implements major change in the family unit. And so it would be really great to start teaching children at a very young age where their food comes from. Like, not to have such a disassociation between the chicken and the chicken nugget. Like, it's not that you just share a name, they share a flesh, they share a soul. We need to do that.
Yes, we do. Yes, it's exactly what happened in my family. I went vegetarian and said, I'm never eating meat again. And my parents are like, oh, it'll be a phase, not a phase. 40 years later. And then they're all vegan now. And now I've got vegan nieces and nephews and a whole little snowball effect.
So proud of you. And so when did you shift from vegetarianism to veganism?
When I was 15. Yeah. Okay. So between 7 and 15, I was writing in school notebooks, about why are we eating animals? We have so many other things to eat. But of course, I didn't know the cruelty of the egg and dairy industries. But when I did figure that out, I immediately went vegan and was sitting in the cages in the side of the road in cages, being like, well, I think people just don't know. If only people knew like me, they're going to obviously just turn vegan like that. That was my thinking.
It's amazing how many people just would rather
not know,
a blind eye,
rather
like
not know.
Ignorance. This is the point, the statement where ignorance is bliss really comes into fruition. I think people can really see that. I've had this difficulty. I have to be quite candid with my mom. She's like, I will not give up my milk and my tea every morning. And I'm like, there's so many delicious milk alternatives. And she's just been holding very dear to this. And she's 72. And it's very interesting because my best friend, as we said, Chef Babette, is 72. And they're like polar opposites in this approach, right?
Coffee, people with their creamer in their coffee. That seems to be one of the toughest ones
to let go.
Yeah, they're people are very attached to whatever creamer they're used to using. Well, speaking of kids, question number 2, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a TV anchor. Ironically enough. So I think that was such a big part of why I went into, when I moved to LA, I wanted to be a TV host. And because to be quite candid, the reason why news wasn't so appealing to me anymore is because it was constantly like a death or a fire or a shooting, which is basically, shootings, now we see way too often, but that's why when I came to LA, it was like entertainment. Like, it was nice to be able to find your own niche and talk about it. So
nice.
TV anchor. What about you?
Me? I think I went through I went through the zoologist.
You are so great. I love it. I
wish I veterinarian for a second, but
I wish I had you as a friend in high school. I think my trajectory to veganism would have propelled ages.
Probably. I was ordering from PETA and Vegan Outreach, all their. I had the whole. It was L'Oreal and Revlon, Stop Testing Animals campaign. So I had buttons and I was passing them out in school and, all that good stuff.
You are amazing.
Fun fact about yourself that most people don't know.
I grew up doing musical theater. And when I lived in LA, I also did burlesque.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yeah. So there you go.
Very fun. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. And was it a theater? And
you know what? I think Mike has come to one of my shows. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love
Mike
it.
has been a supporter of me. Like our friend Mike Karpinko, who is the creator of Tap Out XT. He's done so much stuff. He's just an influential health coach. I've done so much with him. Like I was a fitness tech for him on his Tap Out XT program, and he's just such a great guy.
He is. I met him doing, I don't know if it was Brazil butt lift, the video series. Yeah, I was one of the background Brazil butt lift.
Oh, like for Beachbody?
Yeah, for Beachbody.
Nice. Yeah, okay, I figured
my fitness modeling days.
I love it. Yeah, we all have a history. I was also Miss Bangladesh in 2012, so there's a little.
Wow. Yeah. Lots of layers there.
Lots of weird, different, detours.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was an exotic dancer in college.
Amazing. Yeah. I think most people feel like they have to be an exotic dancer.
I think so at some point. Yeah.
I mean, now as an educator, I feel like I have to be having an OnlyFans to supplement my income because we're the only country that doesn't pay the people that deserve to be paid what they need to be paid. But bonuses for billionaires, please, any day.
Of course. Of course. All right, number 4. Do you have any regrets? And if not, what is, or maybe this is a better question, what is something that was painful at the time, but looking back, you're very grateful that it happened? I always feel like, okay, so I moved out to Los Angeles when I was 24. And, so I spent most of my formidable years in LA, 15 years. And I was with someone that I was living with someone, the love of my life. And I just had to go. And it was just the decision that I really thought I was going to be with this person forever. And honestly, now that I look back, we had nothing in common. I mean, he was like a Republican. I'm a liberal, vegan, hippie Democrat. I mean, there are just so many things that we value that are so different. But I think the choice of saying no to something that I knew that was comfortable, guaranteed, which is something that most of us do. We stay in that comfortable bubble, right? Was the best decision of my life. Wait, the
leaving the comfortable, yeah. Like leaving Richmond and that relationship was the best decision of my life. Yeah.
Speaking of Virginia, that's where the sanctuary I helped found is. Do you ever go back? Do you have family, friends there still?
I do. Everybody's still there. My mom and dad are still there. I have friends that are still there. I haven't been back in a few years. Where are you in Virginia?
So we're out right outside of Charlottesville. So about an hour and a half from Richmond.
Beautiful. I love Charlottesville.
Yeah. We have a bed and breakfast. It's beautiful. 37 acres.
Wait, what?
Farm pegs. Yeah.
Okay. What?
Yeah.
And do you ever go out there and host anything?
I'm up there many times a year. I'll be back up there beginning of October.
We should co-host something there.
Let's do it.
Oh my God. Yes.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. We need to do a FaceTime while I'm there. I want to show you around. Yes, let's do
When are you going back next?
I'll be there for a week in October, beginning of October.
Oh, my mom's trying to get me out there in October, but we might have to do this. Okay. We'll talk about this at a later date.
We'll talk about this at a later date. Okay. What was the first thought you had when you woke up this morning?
Prepping for my interviews today, oddly enough, because I actually did an interview with Monica Chen, who's the executive director of New Roots Institute. You probably know. Yep. You saw her at the ABA Summit and all that stuff. And so she was great. And I was like, and I needed to go over some like notes. I have an interview with Dr. Columbus Batiste tomorrow. on his show, he's actually interviewing me, which I'm excited
Oh.
about. So I wanted to go over some like key science points. And then I didn't know if you were going to ask me the same thing. So I was also going over key science points.
Well, that's the thing about this interview. I mean, we could go in so many different directions, but I really enjoy getting to know you as a
This is
human
fun.
being.
This is fun. It's like vegan Oprah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's a big, I like that.
Yeah, you're
I like
good.
that. I like that.
You make people very comfortable.
Thank you.
I think. Yeah.
That means the world. Okay. A pet peeve or something that triggers you.
Entitlement. Like it's just, and it comes in so many forms. Like it comes with students in school, like expecting a grade without doing the work. It comes with people we're waiting in lines, it comes in every form, but every time I see it, it makes me want to drop somebody off in the middle of Bangladesh in some of the poorest countries and communities where I've ever been and be like, go 2 weeks, basta. And now experience what life or difficulty or hardship is, because people need a reality check. Like you should be so happy that you're alive, able-bodied, like to have 2 working legs and 2 working arms, and then to choose to not be physically active, to choose to not eat healthy, nutritious foods, particularly if you live in middle class, high income class communities, where you have accessibility, where the excuse isn't genetic, where it isn't a metabolic need. It really truly is a choice of not being proactive in your health. I find that incredibly selfish. Like people have the capacity to thrive. We have centenarians, and the only person that's going to live their life for them is them. And so I think when we talk about things that irk me, it's entitlement.
Mm-hmm. And how do you handle that when let's talk about you mentioned your students potentially. How do you handle that internally? Is that something
I think it's a caring conversation that has to happen, because with you, I'm like talking like, oh, this person, but really the only way to transform this person into someone that can have a thought process about it is to walk them through it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, like with a student, I'm like, listen, okay, well, here are the requirements of the class. It required 20 days of participation where you only actually showed up for 4. And I am really lenient with absences, as long as you give me like formal notice, you let me know the excuse, but you did not communicate with me at all. In addition, it requires these 3 papers due, which this one wasn't turned in. This one was turned in late. And this one was actually a paper you wrote for another class and you forgot to change the title page. So these are very candid conversations I think we have. So we have to be like, there are things that I think when you're having an expectation for this class, you have to ensure that you've done the work to receive the grade that you have the expectation for. And I think you can give criticism to people without making them feel bad, as long as you can drop some knowledge and you're there to ensure that you're there for their understanding. You're there for their support, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes for everyone we speak with in the world. I mean, it's an art to be able to speak candidly with somebody in a way that doesn't create a wall between you, that the other person doesn't immediately put up their defenses, because if that happens, then it's pointless, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why I'm really grateful to education, because I've seen it go from where I've been incredibly politically incorrect, and that is not the best way to instill change in someone. Shaming them, making them wrong. There were points where I was not taught on how to be an educator, and I made mistakes, right? Do I regret them?
Never made a mistake.
Do I regret them? No, because they have made me the educator I am today, to know that those are behaviors that are not okay, and I will not do them ever again. Do I have my apologies to probably people that I maybe have negatively impacted along the way? Then yes, absolutely. I never want to imprint anything negative on anyone, especially if my intention was to make a point to ensure that they kept themselves safe or that they were following the right path, but I do that so much more grace these days, and it feels so great.
Love that. Okay, last question. You are gifted a button, like a button you push, that performs one action of your choice every time you push it. What action does that button perform?
Oh, of course. It turns every person vegan. I mean, everybody knows that. Yeah, right?
See, ended with an easy one. All right. Okay. So is there any of you went through some science. Is there any science that is particularly exciting to you right now?
I want to talk about, like, often in science or in media, we hear like sugar is the enemy, right? There's so much advocation against sugar. And you have to remember, a lot of these things are part of big ag and big dairy trying to pivot from the actual issue. What we need to know is that fat, that's the real issue, right? Fat cells are like hormone factories. When we think about estrogen production, that doesn't happen from our intake of glucose. It happens from having so much excess fat. Adipose tissue, fat cells, lipids, adipocytes. The more we have of this, the more of these negative hormones that we secrete and produce, right? Estrogen, testosterone, all of these pro-inflammatory cytokines or the cytokines, like a cytokine storm. All of these things happen with an excess of fat in the diet. And so when we have a clinically obese population, these are all things that can be mediated with a whole food plant-based diet and with significantly more intense physical activity. People need to move with rigor. Like, yes, if you're totally new to a fitness program, walking 5 days a week with some rigor where you're like, it can't just be like walking your teacup poodle dog that's going and you're barely moving. Like, there has to be intensity allotted in this. And so I think when we prescribe exercise and we prescribe nutrition advice, we really need to look at the science of it. Why are we prescribing less meat and dairy? Well, because it's ridden with fat and these animal proteins and heme iron, which are associated with all of these cancers and cardiovascular diseases that we do not see when you eat a whole food plant-based diet. And so I think the biggest thing to remember is that when we are eating things like meat and dairy, they are lacking the fundamental thing that we do need, and that is fiber. Oftentimes the USDA said that you need a minimal amounts of fiber, 24 grams for females and 28 grams for males. That is just absolutely absurd. The average individual should get a minimum of 40 grams of fiber, right? And the reason that is because fiber is what is going to eliminate all of these toxins from your body, right? And so when we talk about toxicity elimination, how does that occur? Well, we're talking about digesting food and then eventually everything being filtered out by the liver, right? For all of you people that love to eat organs, the liver is a filtration device. I have no idea why we would want to eat it. I digress. So it filters through the liver, it enters through the bile duct and exits out the intestine. And then these hormones, the excess hormones that we've had, like estrogen and all these toxicities, they get carried out of the intestines through fiber. You literally will flush them away. Now, imagine people that eat copious amounts of meat and dairy. Well, what ends up happening is all these toxicities enter into the intestines, and then they get sucked back in to the bloodstream and then back into the liver and through this process called enterohepatic circulation. Entero, enterohepatic, enterohepatic circulation. And so this happens multiple times within the day. I mean, no wonder people are getting sick.
Yeah. And people are worried about protein.
And that's the fascinating thing, because when we actually look at protein origination, you know this, it comes in plant form. Some of your your protein dense foods that people think, right? Like we're talking about their meats and all this stuff. Then where does your protein get your protein from?
Right.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And now, like the things that people eat, because we're starting to see exposés on like what is in your animal feed, and we're seeing things like microplastics and cardboard, and when we talk about a bioaccumulation of things like having antibiotic resistance, having a bioaccumulation of microplastics in our DNA now, we don't know the long-term effects. But we're going to start to see them. But what we are seeing is that we're having things like you're resistant to the antibiotics that you need to fight an infection an ongoing infection you've been having. And that is terrifying. That what we're starting to see is another outbreak of coronavirus, which is significantly more violent. And we do know that the originations of this, and when we start looking about the epidemiology of these zoonotic viral diseases, is they are originating in animals, in wet markets, in places that if you just don't consume these things, or you're not around these places, it just puts another bubble of protection. You know, you've heard about like that meat tick in Texas, right?
The tick that might save the planet.
I'm like, we should just call this tick Jesus.
Yeah, right.
It's the Jesus tick.
Go.
Praise Jesus. It would be great, but it's like nature's fighting back. It's really, it's interesting to see.
Fascinating. That's yeah. For people that don't know, do you want to tell about
apparently there's a tick these days that makes people allergic to meat. I don't really understand the actual base of physiology of it. I didn't read in too much into detail, but people actually get an allergic reaction when they consume this. They can get violently ill. And so you just can't eat it.
Right.
It makes me so happy.
I know.
I don't mean to smile when I talk about someone getting violently ill.
Right.
Please don't think of me as that person, but the irony.
Right. Exactly. No, it's literally, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's the world fighting back. It has to be.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, talk about systemic change. I mean, this is, it's just fabulous. I can't stop smiling when I think about this tick.
You're so cute.
It's just, yay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yes. So yeah, I just want to kind of pull things together from the systemic angle. And I've heard you talk about intersectionality as well. And I was saying that I had a podcast called Solutionary Vegan, where we really looked at these solutions from a systemic standpoint. Can you just talk a little bit about intersectionality, what that means to you, and how that relates to our food systems?
That's a great question. I think when we're talking about the intersectionality of things, we're talking about how different areas are combining to make an impact in the way we see food, the way we approach food, the way we eat the foods that we eat, right? So we have places like food deserts, we have food scarcity, we also have chronic obesity. And so when we take a look at all of these different things, we also need to look at them from a critical lens, like from the objectivity of social injustice. Because often when we look at certain food systems that oppress people of color or immigrants, like people will argue that, you know, people of color are abused in the agricultural industry, and they are, not only in the fields, but equally in the slaughterhouses. And we know that there are also child worker cases in slaughterhouses. So there are so many things that are so wrong. We are also seeing like human trafficking in chicken houses. Like there are so many things that are hidden behind big ag that should be terrifying people, because it is like the mafia. It is the governmental mafia. And the only way that we change these things is when informed citizens make choices and they voice their opinions to have institutional change. This is why we have amendments in the Constitution, right? Like I know people are like, oh, all about, the Second Amendment, my right to bear arms, but this is an amendment and it can be amended again. And that is what progress is about, because if we continue to look through the lens of who we were 200 years ago, we'll never be able to be 200 years forward. And so I think when we look at big ag, when we're talking about you having the right to eat your meat, yes, in an ideal world, would I love everybody to be vegan? Yes. Is that the only solution to reversing our current climate degradation? Yes, it is. We have to be like, no, you can't eat meat. But that's not going to happen. So can we argue that then we can break down the top 5, like JBS, Tyson Foods, Cargill, and break the subsidy approach that we give billions of dollars to these companies who, by the way, are not supporting you. They're not paying your bills. They're giving you heart disease, diabetes, and they're killing you, and they're taking your money. So I don't know why we're up in arms to support these people. You want to support someone, support your local rancher and farmer, and they may slaughter their own cows. And if they do that, then at least your cow gets slaughtered in their own field or however process it is. And it is significantly, there's no humane way to slaughter anything. So I can't put that in the conversation and say that with any ethics. But guess what? The cost is then going to be put onto you where it belongs versus on society in terms of taxing and whatever we're paying for in terms of our excess cost in healthcare. And listen, and if you are required to pay $12 for a dozen eggs, and if you're required to pay the $48 it would cost for one steak, when it's hitting your pocket and not subsidized, you're definitely not going to have the ability or the freedom to eat what you want when you want it. So there are amazing plant-based industries in this space that are creating accessible plant-based foods, from mushrooms, from microprotein, from lentils. I mean, it's endless, and it doesn't require animal intervention. And those are the solutions that we should be supporting with our policies and with our dollar.
Amen. You guys go follow Shabnam on Instagram. You do some phenomenal posts, like just so both educational and fun. And yeah, they're great. Follow. All right. What's next for you? Do you want to talk about VKind a little bit and what projects you're doing? And
I love that you asked. And you can even see that I'm wearing my peeled shirt. This was the very first of its kind vegan cooking competition show. It was hosted by myself and Chef Babette Davis, who is the owner of Stuff I Eat Inglewood. And we basically put really 4 great chefs up to the challenge of cooking particular meals. And it was just such a fun show. And what we have coming up next is the VKind experience in Los Angeles, held at the Magic Box from November 11th and November 12th. This is a fully immersive experience. And what I mean, did you do the Van Gogh experience ever or anything like that?
I didn't. I saw it, but I haven't been.
So for those of you that have had the opportunity to go do an immersive experience, this is going to be like one of its kind. It's going to be an event where it is all inclusively paid for, which is what I love. Like I hate going to a lot of vegan events where you just have to pay at each event and you're going to each vendor, and those pop-ups are great, but VKind is, this ticket allows you to go in and explore the entire globe. We want you to travel from continent to continent and experience what vegan cuisine is like on each continent. And so like you can even go to Antarctica and experience what we were going to have, the polar room. So you get to try all these different vegan vegan ice creams and desserts. So they're being really creative with it. We will also have like a sweet room where we're going to have the most incredible vegan chocolates, my favorites. I can't drop brands yet, but it's going to basically be like a psychedelic Willy Wonka experience. I mean, and then we have a mushroom room, which takes you into like fungi. Like imagine the redwood forests of where ET is held, right? And then just being around all these massive mushrooms, a little bit of Alice in Wonderland. And it will be AVR based. We'll have live entertainment. We'll have Eastern Asian dancers. So I'm really excited about the experience that we're going to be having there. And also my favorite part is probably going to be the networking room. So at the end of the experience, there'll be one major room where everybody can network. They can have cocktails. They can try more foods. They can go shopping. It's going to be an incredible experience. So I'm really excited for it.
I saw the I saw the website and I was like blown away. I mean, really, it does. I do the magic mushrooms every now and then, and I was like, okay.
Yes. I mean, and we want people to be invited into the space where they walk in and they go, okay, I'm in the oceanic room, and they see whales in their actual habitat that are actually whizzing by them through AVR, and you're going to smell the ocean, and you're going to eat plant-based seafoods or things with seaweed. We're going to promote plant-based companies and have incredible cuisine, which is curated by Chef Chris Tucker, who is just brilliant vegan chef. And so it's just really exciting to be a part of a movement that is taking veganism to a different level of experience. Like we want to show people that are non-vegan that like, oh my God, this is awesome. And this should be the standard, right?
1000%. I'm really considering heading out for that.
You're coming for that. I'm going to send you oh, by the way, so if any of you want to go, I'm going to give you a 10% off on your tickets. Wow. Use Dr. Shabnam. That's DrShabnam. I hope to see you there in Los Angeles, November 11th and 12th, for a great experience. Unforgettable.
All right. We'll put that in the show notes. Where else can people find you? Any final words?
You can find me on vkindconnects.com. Also on Instagram, Dr. Shabnam Islam. But Chef Babette Davis and I have a channel called Vegan Corn Hub. You can find us on YouTube at Vegan Corn Hub. That's Vegan Corn Hub. It's like all one word. I'm not down to spell it right now.
You got it. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. No, yes. But thank you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Super fun. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course.